Hello and welcome back to All Things PlayStation 4 and the video review for Thief. Now, as many of you likely know, this game came out quite a long time ago, but since I'm starting up with all these video commentaries, I figured, what the hey, I need the practice, and if you're a part of the 0.05% of the population on the planet who still wants to play this game, then who knows, maybe this video will be of some use to you. But you may want to check out a couple of the things that I'm talking about here before you decide to buy it, because there are a few things you're going to need to bear in mind. What you're seeing here is a nice little action sequence from about the halfway point in the game, and we'll get into more of the stealth kind of gameplay mechanics about halfway through this video, so you can really get an understanding of what this game has to offer for you. So I suppose a good a place as any to start talking about this game would be The City. Now, Square Enix obviously weren't feeling very creative that day. The city doesn't really have a name, it's just The City. A lot of the old school fans of Thief will recognise some of the street names, which is nice and all, but without dancing around the subject too much, it can't be ignored. The city is an absolute nightmare to navigate. The marker that you can place on the map is not really progressive, so you don't have a marker, as you can see in this little sequence here, funnily enough, going from place to place to guide you through the city, which, funny enough, is just winding alleyways and not really very many rooftops that you can get around. Which you would think would be a given when the developers are harping on about all your parkour abilities, this, that, and the other. But no, turns out it's a rabbit warren. It's a labyrinth. It's really hard to get around. And when you haven't got a progressive marker telling you to go from point A to point B, it does turn into a bit of a nightmare. So, for example, you'll follow it for ages and ages, convinced that you're going the right way. And then all of a sudden you'll be met by a dead end. You've got that marker right in front of you, you've got a little 5 underneath it. Oh, it's really close. But no, there's a great big brick wall, or to add insult to injury, it might even be a gate. Oh, why don't you open it, Garrett? Of course, that's not an option. So you've got this marker right in front of you, you're blocked, and it turns out you'll have to turn around and you'll have to backtrack through the city, not to mention through several load screens, past many NPCs that you would have already passed several times, saying the same old tripe over and over again. Madness, total madness. So the unfortunate result is this bad developer decision will actually lead to many people, I'd imagine, and many people probably already have, simply giving up on the game, which is a shame, because as you can see there are moments, like the ones that are playing right here, that are quite memorable, they're quite good. But a lot of players will miss out on that because they won't have the staying power to get through that nightmare of navigation through the city. And who can blame them? If you play the game, you'll see what I mean. And maybe I'm focusing a little bit too much on the negative here. I mean, when you get to the end of that nightmare navigation that I keep harping on about, you'll get into a specific mission, and it'll be a little bit less, well, there's no other way to say it, it'll be less of a mess. It's the only part of the game that really functions properly when you get into a mission. Some of them are genuinely fun. You can scour for rare loot. Who doesn't like looting things? And obviously that's what this game is all about. When you're in a mission, loot, 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 happy as Larry. It is satisfying to take a step back as you start a mission, survey the area, figure out how you're going to get in there, and plot out your plan of attack, basically. So these little mission areas that you'll be getting to, kind of like the one you've just seen here, they're more like, they're either linear approach or they're like little sandboxes that you can take your time to explore and make the most out of. But it does make me think that Square Enix, instead of diluting and confusing matters with the city, maybe they would have been better off just sticking to the original Thief formula. Do a mission, cutscene, load screen, do the next mission. Anyway, I digress. To get back on point, enemy AI is actually pretty sharp. You're going to have to keep your head on a swivel, especially in the open areas. You could well get spotted from above by some eagle-eyed douchebag. Swoop is useful. You likely know about Swoop. If not, it's basically a quick whiz, is the only way I can describe it. A quick whiz from A to B. which is very useful. You know, if someone's going to spot you, you can scoot yourself out of the way pretty quick fast, and it's pretty much all you will need to navigate most of these areas. So I mean, the game has introduced mild RPG elements. You know, you can buy sturdier equipment, new arrows. You can do what's called increasing focus points to increase character attributes, like how well you stay hidden in the shadows, for example. But as I say, you don't really need them. There's no incentive to get them or to level up, because just that one mechanic of the swoop is, as I say, all you're going to need. As a side note, you know, increasing your focus points, you have to go and visit, inverted commas, the Queen of the Beggars. Now, she's in a fixed location in the city, and she does actually have her own marker on the map, just the same as all the vendors on the map as well, where you can buy extra lockpicks, equipment, yada yada. But don't forget what I said about the city being an absolute nightmare to navigate. So, you know, even if you decide you want to go and do some leveling up, basically, by going and visiting the Queen of the Beggars, more often than not, you're going to decide no, because you don't want to go through that nightmare all over again. So as a result, there's no incentive to level Garrett up. And you know, what you're looking at here is fairly late footage in the game, and I've hardly leveled up at all. And look at me, well, it might be a bit of an overstatement to say I'm breezing through it, but I'm doing fine. I'm getting through. Happy days. And the last thing I should probably talk about in terms of gameplay is the Watchtower, which is pretty much Geralt's lovely, depressing, dingy, dark home. Now it's kind of acts as a pointless base of operations. You've got a collection of stolen items, and they're not just your typical drudgery that you will steal throughout missions. They're special collectible items. Sometimes you would have had to have gone through a puzzle to get through them. And to start with, it's quite satisfying finding these, going, ooh, I found it, lovely. But eventually, after so long, your collection will build up in the Watchtower, and you'll realize they're completely pointless. When you pick them up, no gold reward or cash reward, whatever you want to call it, none of that. There's no trophies, except, I think, happy to be proving wrong here, but except when you collect pretty much all of it, which you'd have to be hard-pressed to. You'd have to oddly really like this game to get all of that stuff. So as I say, you know, this collection is made up of all the rare loot that you found. You get a small sense of pride to start with, but it's utterly pointless.
There's one thing this city's taught me. You can put a price on anything. Secrets, reputations, a life. And trust? If you have to ask, you can't afford it. But then I suppose none of that matters when you're me. After all, when did I ever pay for anything?
So to wrap things up, consistently throughout the game, I just had an impression that the developers wanted to have done more with this game. There are a lot of aspects of it that feel like they were part of a formula to create a really good game. But I think they bit off more than they could chew in the development phase, well, the drawing board phase, I should say. By about the halfway point through the development process, they realized they'd, you know, gotten a little bit over-ambitious, and the game ended up being a little bit washed out as a result. I'll give it a 4, maybe a 5 out of 10 at a push. It is unfortunately an average game. So that's it from me today. This is Nick Banks at All Things PlayStation 4. I'll be signing off now, and if you want to leave a comment below, please do go ahead. Also, please do remember allthingspс4.com is a developing site, so do head over there, take a look around, share it with your friends if you think it'll benefit them. Until then, I'll see you next time, guys.